Tonight's episode of the 31st Lap Podcast is brought to you by DirtTrackDigest.com. If it's on dirt, it's on Dirt Track Digest.
This is the 31st Lap Podcast, recorded live in the studios of FingerLakes1.com in downtown Seneca Falls, New York. And now, your hosts, Chris Marquardt.
Not yet. We actually missed the start of the show. How about that?
Yeah.
Got talking about the intro. We got a couple guests here in the studio with us, Jason Oldfield and Jon Pellicane, joining us here, making their first trip ever to FingerLakes1.com studios. Guys, thanks for making the trip out.
Hey, thanks for inviting us out, Chris.
You bet, man. It's going to be a good show. We're going to be talking a lot about drag racing and things along those lines. We're going to be talking about the upcoming 990 race that's going to be at Empire Dragway. The one thing that I didn't change after you corrected me earlier was our overlay right there. We'll check that. That's why we're live right there. That's how it goes. But first order of business, we had a bunch of racing action happen over the weekend in various iterations. The Brewerton Speedway reopened for an event. Matt Shepard picking up his 10th, if you can believe it, 10th Super Dirt Car Series win of the year. That ties him with Billy Decker. Billy Decker set that mark back in 2008. If you count his wins at Volusia and Eldora, Shepard is holding a 45.45 win percentage, which is absolutely unheard of. He started 12th, and he had to patrol for a little while to get up there. About lap 39, he knocked off Tim Fuller and got the lead. And Billy Decker and Tim Fuller traded the spot. And behind him, Tim Sears ran everybody down late, stalked the top five, moved past a couple of the back markers before he went past Decker with about a lap to go. Decker held on to third behind Sears Jr. Stu Friesen rolled up to fourth, and Larry White settled into the top five. Ron Davis the third. Last two starts for him on the Super Dirt Car Sportsman Series were at tracks he'd never heard of, Ransomville, or never seen anyway, Ransomville and Humberstone. Picked up wins there, came back to Brewerton Speedway, where he's the track champion and was very, very familiar with that track. Won his third straight there. Shane Paycor, he led early. Brad Rouse, Dave Marcachelli, they were a factor as well. You can't ever count out Rocky Warner. They battled in the top five. About lap 30, Rouse was still ahead. He was in heavy lap traffic. Dodged a bullet as one of the lap cars. Got loose in front of him. 10 to go. Picor was out front. Rouse was chasing him, and Ronnie Davis had moved up to third. You're going to be hearing his name a lot here in the next few minutes. 5 to go. Ronnie Davis was in lockstep with leaders in lap traffic. Went to the top. There was more room in there. He got past Rouse. A lap later, he got by Picor, and Picor actually fell in the last little bit, falling to third while Rouse held second. Rocky Warner and Root filled in the top five. Let's move ahead to Weedsport Speedway. Weedsport's action got the first leg of their card in on Saturday. Danny Johnson ended up ending Matt Shepard's string of 4 straight. Danny Johnson himself is the career record holder for most consecutive wins in Super Dirt Car Series action with 5. Matt Shepard's streak was ended at 4. Johnson drove a small block, and it was met with some mixed reviews, and driving the small block at Weedsport against the Super Dirt Car Series Modified Tour. Tim Kerr, he was an early leader. We heard his name kind of factor in a little bit earlier this year at Brewerton. This time it was at Weedsport where he was leading the way. Gave the lead to Tim Fuller. Fuller was out in front, but gave up the point to Danny Johnson on a lap 45 restart. That lap 45 restart came because of a huge pileup. Took out a bunch of the front runners, Brett Hearn, Ryan Phelps, Rich Collada, Chad Brockman, Rob Bellinger, and some others. In the midst of it, Shepard had moved up to third place, and on the restart gave it up to Larry White, who got as high as second before falling back through. Tim Fuller got by him, and then Shepard went by to hold third. Johnson had about a straightaway lead or so, and then Shepard got the second, started reeling him in, but couldn't do anything with him. Through the balance of it, it was a big win for the Generali team because they had tore up one of their primary cars at Brewerton on Friday. Adam Hilton, he came up with the win of the 25-lap Napa Sportsman, almost came up with the win of the 25-lap Napa Sportsman shootout race. Ronnie Davis ended up stealing the win on lap 18. Davis got the lead and held on following a close call with slower traffic. From there, he was able to double up. He won the Sportsman Classic 75 earlier this year. Hilton was second with Rocky Warner, Ricky Newton, Dave Marcachelli behind him. The Super Dirt Car Series for the Modifieds is at Fonda this Saturday. That's the first stop of the year at Fonda for them. The race is on the 24th, as we said. It precedes Super Dirt Week at Oswego Speedway, so they still got a little bit of work to do there. Billy Decker won that race last year in Fonda, taking lead from Brett Hearn on lap 78, with Friesen White, Gary Tompkins, and Fuller filling in the top 5. Paradise lost their race due to the weather. The weather affected a lot of stuff on Saturday and Sunday. I was caught basically in a tornado at a live event in Dunkirk, New York for the Lake Erie Rumble, which was held as a fundraiser for the Variety Kids charities, which helps sick and injured children all over Western New York. A lot of that money goes to the telethon that's held on Channel 7 out there in Buffalo, the ABC affiliate, and then from there, a lot of that money is going to be staying right at Buffalo Hospital in Buffalo. Paradise Speedway, we talked about them losing it. Eric Rudolph, he won his second straight Russ King Memorial at Sharon Speedway in Ohio. He won $3,000 for that one, and that was the Big Block Mod Tour. Billy Pouch Jr. won the All-Star Cup 50 at New Egypt. Jeremy Wilder picked up 2 wins. Darwin Green won the third, and the triple 20s at Fonda Speedway. Ronnie Johnson won his second of the year at Albany, Saratoga. A little bit of final notes on dirt racing, then we're going to turn to straight line asphalt tracks here in just a minute. Outlaw Speedway is going to open up this weekend for their Fall Nationals program. Friday's cars got 3 different touring series in town. The 360 Sprints are going to be comprised of the Patriot Sprint Tour, Lucas Oil Empire Super Sprints, and the United Racing Club, all going to be going for $5,000. Jared Zimbardi and Mark Smith. They dueled the line in a photo finish last year. They've added clay to the track finally, smoothed out some of those rough problems that they saw over the summer, and they're now at a point where they're expecting the speeds to be even faster. The car is also going to include the Crate Sportsman. They're running on Hoosier cars there, 25-lap feature, paying 1,500 IMCAs. They're going 25 laps, 1,000 wins for them. A.J. Ward from Michigan is going to be on hand, along with Jake Maynard and Will Ward, who won the opening night IMCA event over there at Outlaw. The street stocks are going to be doing 35 laps with 1,500 to the winner there. And the top 2 finishers are going to be guaranteed starters for the Empire 100 in October. And they're going to be guaranteed starters for the 1,000 to win Woodhull 100 on the 24th of September. Turn 5 Podcast and Creekside Racing are putting up a $200 bonus if anybody can double up and win both Black Rock's feature on Friday and the Woodhull 100 the following day. 4-cylinder competitors are going for $1,000, 25-lap feature. Every car's got to weigh 2,500 pounds. No cars are going to have stroker engines. No cars are going to have roller heads. The superchargers or turbos are not allowed either. Only permitted tires or DOTs, and tube chassis are permitted. Local country music recording artist Devin Franks is going to be on hand following Friday's action. Racing starts at 7. It's $20 to get in the grandstands. Pit gates open at 4. Pit admission is $35. Saturday's card is going to be the second leg of the $25,000 Sunoco Modified Triple Crown. It's a 5,000 win 40 lapper for the big blocks, and it's going to give us the second winner in the 3 Race Challenge. Tyler Seary earlier this year won the opening event. He can pull down $25,000 if he can win all 3 races. If somebody happens to upset Seary and win the Fall Nationals event, then they're going to be in line if they can double up at the Dutch Hogue race at the end of October to win $12,500. Not too bad of a payday if somebody can wrap all that up. The Crate Sportsman Division, they're going for $2,000 in a 35-lap feature. The 4-cylinders are going 30 laps under the same rules as Friday, and the 600cc micros are going to be on the track, 1,000 to win, 20 laps the distance there. The IMCA Modifieds are going to be in round 2 of their Fall Nationals weekend, 1,500 to win, 35-lap feature for those. Both of the IMCA shows are going to pay national, regional, and state IMCA points. The Saturday night card is going to be a double down for them with Empire State Series points up for grabs as well. That's the fall event at Outlaw Speedway for the IMCAs in the Empire State Series. Saturday's card starts at 5 o'clock. Adults get in for $20 as always at Outlaw Speedway. Children 12 and under are free. Camping is free on the grounds as well. For additional information, visit www.outlawspeedway.llc.com. So that covers all the dirt track stuff. Now, you're not going to get dirty where these guys hang out, at least in theory. You might get some rubber.
I would say you'll get covered in
blow by, but you're not necessarily going to get covered in dirt the way that we're typically exposed to in some of the places that we go with the dirt racing stuff. Joining us here in studio as we did a couple quick introductions about 10 minutes ago before we started getting into the housekeeping notes. Jason Oldfield and Jon Pellicane. Jon was appearing on the show a couple weeks ago. My phone, he said, hey, the couches look comfy. We got to get here. So Here we are. And it really kind of worked out well because last weekend it didn't fall out for our schedule, and then the tornadoes touched down in Western New York and ruined everybody's motorsports hopes. And the 990 event that you guys are working on at Empire Dragway has been rescheduled, right?
It's been rescheduled for this weekend. That's right.
So it's going to be this weekend. First off, how's everything been? What's racing like? All the cars still in one
They're
piece?
In the trailer, ready to go, I guess. We're just waiting for some weather to cooperate and finish up this year.
So tell me more about this 990 event at Empire Dragway. 990 is something that's new to me. Your goal is to be as consistent as possible, as close to that 990 target.
Correct.
It's not bracket racing per se, as you're racing the clock and racing your own consistency, right?
It's still considered bracket racing. The difference is that rather than a competitor choosing their own dial, everybody in the class runs on the same dial. And so 9.9 seconds is the index for the entire class. You don't get to choose that. And a difference, so doing that, there's no handicap head start. Everybody leaves. It's a pro tree heads-up race. We run on a 4/10 pro tree, and and we call it a pro tree because it's just what the pros run. And again, it's a heads-up race, so both cars are leaving the starting line at the same time, and everybody has the same 990 dial. And so if you go quicker than that 9.9 second dial, you are disqualified. If both competitors go quicker than 990, then it's whoever goes under the least is declared the winner. It was a way to try to make racing less expensive, but still kind of get that thrill of a heads-up race. That's kind of every drag racer's dream. Every drag racer's dream is to run heads up. First one to the finish line wins. The problem is that's what we call cubic dollars.
Yeah,
and,
it's big money. It's
right. So that's a difficult thing to do. So this kind of gives you almost the best of both worlds.
So you've run in them. I mean, you've been in the driver's seat, and you got that car sitting right next to you. How much technology is there to keep you from beating yourself? Because when you're right there neck and neck with somebody, your instinct takes over, and you want to go hammer down as hard as you can and beat the guy. Do you have technology in place that's going to limit your margin for error as a human being?
There is technology in place to help you. So
dial the car, but you got to know how to use that.
Right. Yeah. Going down the track, you can't actually have something, let's call it, that tells you where you are on the track, or if you're going too quick. That's still really up to the driver. So you make your prediction essentially before you go up for the run and say, I think this is what the car is going to run, and
you drive from there.
Right.
You set the car up the way you want, and you drive down track the way the way you set your car up.
What's the plus minus or win margin commonly in these when you get to the line? It seems if everybody's targeting that 9.90,
yep,
you're within. I mean, how many guys are running 9.8, 99999, and then the next guy is 9.8, 99999.
Right.
No, there's lots of guys that can run 9900.
Yeah.
Which is perfect. Or 990 with a 1 or 2. But then there's people that miss their dials or the cars don't work right, and then they're on a 91 or 92. You know what I mean? So there's lots of times when you lose by margin, 001, 0001. I mean,
that's crazy.
Oh,
I mean, you're right there.
I looked at a time ticket the other day from a race that I won a few years ago, and in the quarterfinals, on the ticket itself, it was a complete dead heat. Everything was identical.
There wasn't enough.
I was declared the winner.
The computer has to go back like 5 spots.
Yeah. So the time ticket itself only prints out. Depends on what track you go to. Some of them print out to a 10,000th of a second. Most of them are only to a 1,000th of a second. But to a 10,000th of a second, this race was identical. I was declared the winner.
For anybody who's not familiar with drag racing, the time ticket has the different intervals through the course of the track and where you're at for your timestamps and things along those lines. So it tells you where you're faster, if you're gaining through a particular area of the track, or if you're losing through a particular area of the track, and by pulling that, it's only going to go out so many decimal places.
Right.
If it's a couple hundredths or a couple thousandths or whatever, and it's just zeros across the line.
Right.
It's crazy.
It is crazy.
It's very involved.
Yeah, we see all the time, and I realize they're close races, right? I mean, you talk about Daytona 500 or whatever. It's like, I don't realize those guys are racing over 500 miles, and then it comes down. It's like, one guy beats the other guy by 300ths of a second. That's ridiculous for such a long race.
300ths of a second to us is a week.
But 300ths of a second for us.
If I beat him by 300ths, I'm going back to the pits going, oh my God,
Right.
I feel like a rookie.
Yeah.
That's like, we don't want to talk about that. That's a lot.
That's
too much. Our goal is to win by the least amount.
Your goal is to win
Correct.
by the least amount.
Am I saying that right?
Because that would mean that it's a more competitive race, right?
Less chances of
going too quick.
Right.
Okay.
So I want to beat you to the finish line. We used to say a lug nut. I mean, it's probably still a lug nut. I guess that's still fair. But I want to beat you to the finish line by as little as possible. If I'm going to beat you to the car by a car length, why would I want to do that? There's no reason to do that.
Why would I want to risk that much ahead
Right.
to go under 990? So you want to close that gap up, slow your car down as much as you can, and still beat your opponent.
So it is truly,
realistically, in a perfect world,
but it is truly
less
heads
than
up.
10 thou.
Wow.
Yeah, that's
Less than 10th out, you're
Yeah.
doing a damn good job.
yeah.
But it is still purely a heads-up race. As long as both cars are under that,
right.
well, they're going to have to be over that 990.
Over the
I would have to
990,
say you
right,
got to be
right.
you got to be slower than 990. The first
Correct.
car to the line wins.
Correct. Exactly. Yep. That's exactly it.
So it's such a mix. I mean,
It's
the bracket racing that I'm familiar with, they get so wrapped up in the time that you could go slower and theoretically still win because of breakouts and things like that.
Right.
And then it gets even more convoluted down there with the reentries and doubles and things along those lines.
Right.
This is heads up. So at least from the stands, the first car across the line is the guy that wins. Just like
no.
no.
There's still
I
that
can leave-
breakout.
Well, I
I
mean,
believe the starting line
breakout notwithstanding, and then you got whole shot games and stuff like that.
Right, exactly.
Yeah.
Yep.
Yeah.
Yeah, and I have to say that this is one of the issues that we have as sportsman drag racers today is really trying to explain to the casual fan exactly what's going on. Because if you
it's a
came
lot.
out to the track and you've never been to a drag race before and you don't hang around with somebody that explains to you what's going on at your local track, you'll have no idea. You'll be like, I don't understand. Why did this guy leave first and got to the finish line second, but he gets the win? I don't understand. And you really need to have somebody there to explain. And that's a battle that we've fought for 20 years with NHRA, the sanctioning bodies, basically trying to get more education out there for the casual fans so that people come out and say, hey,
Right.
you know what, this is fun. And if we do educate people come out and they say, all right, now I understand a little bit what's going on.
Right.
It's more fun. And, one of the great things that we have, an advantage that we have over, and I'm not trying to slam the circle track guys, right? But during the race, our race day, during the race, you can walk around the pits. You can come over and hang out in my pit spot. Now, granted, I might be busy, looking at weather and doing tunes on the car and other things. But if you want to hang out in the pits with us, you can come hang out in the pits, and that's pretty interesting to be able to walk around freely like that over the entire property.
Yeah, I mean, circle track stuff. You're paying a premium to walk around the pits.
Right.
This place,
drag racing, pay one fee, you're all access.
Someplace else that did that is a couple of the demolition derbies that we've been to. You pay one fee to get in the gate, and you can go to the pits or you can go to the grandstand, which is really cool because those cars you're not going to recognize them after they're done. But that's Monday's show. We can't talk about that stuff here. They get upset. they like it when cars stay straight here.
Yeah.
Yeah. We don't like,
body panels don't get messed up.
Yeah. We don't like talking about crashes either.
You were talking about trying to get us out to the track sometime, and I'm telling you right now, with some of the footage, actually a friend of mine who was working for the Canandaigua Messenger, his name was Ron. He just covered motorsports, and at one point he was working on the safety safari for NHRA, and he talked about this clip, and he finally showed me this dude hit the wall, and this cameraman was standing there, and the cameraman was stoic, and the car flipped over him, and the guy never moved. Yep. I mean, he never moved, and that's if we could get a car to take out a camera when we were live, that'd be cool.
You want to volunteer, John? I have, I have to say, I've had a couple of top end incidents, and they're not fun. I mean, you've had one.
I had one. I didn't hit nothing, but I've spun one around at 150 some miles an hour.
Jeez,
yeah,
it's nuts.
Yeah,
it's not.
Well,
thanks.
Yeah.
Coming back to the tree, a perfect tree, and you run. Let's say you run a 991.
Okay.
The other guy cuts a slower tree, but from starting line to finish line, it takes him 9.905. That guy wins, or not?
Well,
he left
the first
line.
guy was a 10th out package,
right?
And the second guy was what? Say it again.
991.
991 versus 9.905. So the second guy, he left the line later,
right.
But he was
How
faster.
much later?
So you're saying 5,000, 0.005?
Is it a
No,
dead
you
heat?
said you went 990 with a 5.
Oh, yeah.
The first guy was trip zip 91. The second guy was 990 with a 5. What was his light?
What was his light?
You tell me.
That's a dead
and I'll
heat.
tell you who wins the race.
He's 2/10 slower off the line.
Oh.
Okay, yeah, that's
two. I'm sorry,
200,
200
20?
slower. Yeah.
Yeah, he's done.
Yeah, he's done.
So he loses.
Yeah.
Even though he had the faster pass.
Correct.
He's way done.
Yep.
Yeah.
Yep.
So,
yeah, and that happens, and that's part of the strategy really that comes into this style racing. So you do your best to try to predict again what the car is going to do, and the weather factors into that. But obviously, you're still talking about cars that make upwards of 1,100, 1,200 horsepower that are out there. So they're not going to be consistent leaving the starting line perfectly to a thousandth of a second every single
No,
time,
we're
right?
not.
We try,
Right.
and we do the best we can, but there's a lot of factors that come into play. And I mean, even little things like how well that you stage the car at the starting line up into the stage beams. I mean, if you go in a little bit too far,
An inch.
that makes
Changes the whole
that
run.
makes you slow. So that it's really, really difficult to do it. So you go up there with your game plan, but in a lot of cases, the game plan is, you know what, I'm going to make my car fast. And I know I'm going to be fast, but what I'm going to do is I'm going to drive down to the other end, see where my competitor is, and if he's right next to me, I know that he's either fast or I was really slow at the starting line, and I'm just going to hit the brakes and let him go through to the finish line first, and then hope that potentially he's going too quick and give myself a chance to win the race. So there's lots of different strategies that you can employ.
A lot.
So coming back to the light thing, if that second guy's light didn't give all the time back, so his 9.905
Yeah.
was
Was the same.
it was the same.
He wins.
He wins.
He
right.
wins.
Yep.
Because that would have been a 5,000 package total, and the
Right.
other guy was 10. See what I'm saying?
So that guy wins.
Yeah.
So in that case, that's where when you're sitting in the stands, if you've never been around it before, that's where stuff starts getting confusing.
Correct.
But
Yeah, you could leave the starting line first or second and go to the finish line second and win the race.
Right.
mhm.
Right.
And that's what people are like, what are you talking about? It's hard to go to work Monday morning and you're working with your fellow workers there, and they say, well, how'd you do? That's a tough question, isn't it, Jay?
Oh, it's very
Well,
tough.
I did good, but what do you mean? Well, I lost first round, but I went too fast. Well, what do you mean you went too fast?
Right.
It's
Right.
a lot of us tend to keep that kind of simple.
Yeah, and
We didn't have to worry about any of this when I was doing ATV drag races at the county fair one year.
You just
It was just whoever got there
Well,
first.
Right,
sure,
right,
yeah, yeah.
and that was great the
But
first
they
week.
had timesheets.
Yeah, I was saying that was great the first week, but then the second week somebody said, "Well, I'm not going to let Chris do that anymore, right? Now I'm going to spend an extra $500 on my ATV." And you're like, "Well, now I'm dead because this guy's got an ATV that's worth an extra $500 more than me."
Oh
right?
no, they never said anything about me doing because they just gave me a microphone and said talk about
Oh,
it.
okay.
I didn't have to worry about it.
Yeah.
I've had an ATV one time and I put it in a tree, so we don't mess around with anything that doesn't have doors and rev limiters.
I would say you can come out to the track and watch them race snowmobile, drag race snowmobiles.
Yeah.
They do that
Yeah.
too.
Isn't that awesome?
It's getting big.
Now is that winter only, or
No,
do they do
no,
that?
that's-
No, it's during the
Summertime.
summer. They
That's
replace
awesome.
the regular track with a slick track and
Wheels.
take the skis and modify the skis and put wheels on them. And
Right.
Oh, yeah.
did you ever
They
race
do.
snowmobiles?
No, my cousin did. She
Oh.
did.
Yeah, it's fun, and they're fast.
Oh, yeah.
They're unbelievably fast.
The grass drags that they have. Are you familiar at all with Empire Farm
Yeah.
Days in Seneca
Yeah.
Falls? They have the grass drag track out there on that same grounds, and we went out there before, and they got the big clay launch area, and then they got the grass track from there, and it was just absurd how fast those things would
Oh,
go.
yeah.
And
Take that and double it when you go to the drag strip.
yeah,
I mean,
Yeah, yeah,
it really
right.
is. Yeah, it's pretty crazy.
so I mean, tell me more about how many competitors you're going to get for this event coming up at Empire.
So in general, I would say our car count probably averages around 16 cars, which is nice because it's a nice 4-round race. You get down and declare your winner. But I mean, we've averaged, I guess the range, if you will be anywhere from 13 to 20 odd cars. There's a fairly large contingent. It's amazing how many guys from around here actually do race what we call, it's 990 is the index. The classes, it depends on whether you're talking NHRA or IHRA, and NHRA
Okay.
at Super Gas and IHRA at Super Rod. We race primarily, this year we raced completely at Empire Dragway, so it's an 8-race schedule, and we're coming up to our last 2 races of the season. So we're getting ready
When you
here.
say last 2 races, that's Saturday and Sunday, or is there one
Yeah,
after
Saturday,
this?
no, there's
One each
Saturday
night.
and Sunday. Yep,
There's one
yep,
each
Saturday
night.
and Sunday, right.
I got excited for a second, John. I thought maybe there's one more. One more in November.
No, you were hoping.
I sure was.
I know. We need to get you out there. Well, you don't have to go to the Bills game Sunday.
I'm going to the Bills game.
All right, well, don't call
I
me
miss-
crying Sunday.
I'm not.
Don't call me
I
crying.
have no intentions of calling you. It's the first time my kid's gonna. My kid is just. My wife grew up a Bills fan. She's still a huge Bills fan, and Alan he's 7. He just turned 7 Labor Day weekend, and it's gonna be the first time he's been
Oh, have
to
fun.
the Bills game. So first time he's gonna walk up the steps and see the arena. We're sitting in the lower bowl, right off the corner of the end zone. So he should have a pretty good time as long as the
You should
Cardinals
be
don't bother
ashamed of
showing up.
yourself.
Why?
You're going to ruin that kid for life.
I'm a Packers fan.
See, I'm a lifelong Bills fan, so I know what I'll know what he's going to be going through. I feel bad for my oldest. My oldest is 20 years old, and can't remember. He can't remember the Bills going to a playoff game. It's crazy.
Melissa was about this age when the Bills started getting good and went to their first Super Bowl. So maybe this is a good sign for them. Things are going to turn around next year, of course, because this year's already in the tank.
I'm going to cross my fingers, but I will say, you come out to the track, we'll have there'll be plenty of guys having the game on the radio as you walk around the pits, and they generally do updates over the radio too, which I don't like actually. I wish they wouldn't do that because I'm a guy that likes to set things on the DVR and be surprised when I get home.
Right.
But if you want to keep in touch with the Bills, you can certainly listen to the Bills game out at the drag strip.
What's the difference between Super Gas and Super Rod?
Sanction.
Yeah, that's the only.
Same class. NHRA calls it Super Gas. IHRA calls it Super Rod.
Right. Yeah. Otherwise,
same thing.
Rule wise, it's basically identical.
Mm-hmm.
IHRA has done a couple of things to relax the rules a little bit, just to make it a little bit easier for the low buck sportsman racer to be able to compete. NHRA did some things this year where they got rid of the physical.
If you want to get a license, you don't have to get a physical anymore. They're just making it easier.
Right. So they're just trying to make it a little bit more affordable for everybody. Mm-hmm. But in essence, NHRA Super Gas, IHRA Super Rod, it's the same class. Empire is an IHRA track. So again, that's kind of why we called our series the Western New York Super Rod Association, because we're racing primarily at IHRA tracks.
Is there just one division that's going to be there, or have you got multiple divisions all targeting the 990 dial?
As far as racing this weekend in our series, it's all pretty much our guys from our division.
It's just
I would.
Yeah. So it's one division of basically 990. So if you're going to run 990, you're going to run with us, and you're going to compete, against all of our guys, if you will. If you don't want to run 990, there will be other classes out there.
Right.
I'm not sure what else Empire has running this weekend, but if you want to run in the normal, bring your street car out and run in street ET, you could do that. But if you want to run 990, then
how populated is their minivan class?
Actually.
Funny story. Last year, I decided I wanted to go drag racing one more time, and they just had a test and tune. They decided to do a gambler's race, so I took my Corvette out. My Corvette's a race car.
Right.
I took my Corvette race car out there, and first round I had a minivan. So I had to spot him a 7-second head start.
Ooh, that's me.
It was. It was. We were only racing to an 1/8 mile. We weren't racing to a 1/4 mile. So it was crazy. I'm watching this minivan pull away. I'm literally thinking to myself, why am I doing this? This is crazy.
You actually have time to think about that too.
For 7 seconds, you got a lot of time to think.
That's a half an hour in the race car, right? You're just like,
it's really amazing. And I'm sure the circle track guys go through the same thing. It's amazing how time seems to slow down, and there's so many things that you can think about in such a short period of time as you're going down the track. And in reality, from 1,000 foot to the finish line, it's a second, but it's amazing how much you think about in that 1 second when you come back and think about it later.
When we're going down the track, I'm going through 163, and at the 1,000 foot, I got to be going well over 150.
Right.
From the 1,000 to the 1/4 mile mark, that's 320 feet.
Right.
It feels like, I go through and I think about a lot. I'm watching it, and that's only, 1.38. Yeah, it's nothing. 1.3, and I can literally slow it down and watch it all. And you've got a good point.
That's crazy.
Yeah, but you have to be in the car and have the adrenaline going, and at that point in time, then you can really appreciate that. Yeah, it does.
There's no replacement for seat time. There's no replacement for seat time. So all the things that you're describing about being able to slow down and control your emotions and make sure that you don't get sucked into the race part of it and stay focused with your eyes on your paper so that you're dialed in as close as possible. It's all comes back to experience, just like we've talked about with circle track stuff, dirt track, asphalt, you name it. That how long does it take before you get to a point where you can say to yourself, I feel comfortable? Are you looking at 100 passes before that? Are you looking at 10 passes?
As far as driving the car or dialing
at a point where you can feel like you're comfortable and you can look at that 320 feet in that slow motion element like you described.
I think that's Jason and I both have fast cars, and if I put him in my car, which is a little faster than yours, the first 3-4 passes, he's going to go, holy cow. But since he's been racing for 25 years, after that, it's going to slow down in his head.
Right.
So, but like someone that hasn't been in a car like that, like you, it might take 25, 30,
Wow.
or 50.
Right.
You know what I mean? Before you really can
Right.
drive down the track. Like, you know, I'm driving down the track sometimes going a $160 and I go like this. I look behind me.
Right.
And what do you think? You know what I mean? I would never do that. But
Which is 5, 6, 10 sets of tires?
oh no, we actually go through probably a set a year, maybe.
Yeah.
Oh, so they're holding up better than I
Oh,
thought.
Oh
yeah.
yeah. We are definitely nowhere near as hard on tires as the
no.
circle track guys are. Nowhere near. I mean, even the pro cars. I mean, they get. I'll say the fuel cars notwithstanding, because those are just a different animal altogether. But if you take a
Pro
normal,
cars, which are cars that are pro class, but not what you see
so
on TV
top
necessarily.
fuel and funny car, the ones running on nitromethane that shake the ground, rotate the earth. I mean, those cars are just, like I said, they're a different animal altogether. But if you were to take a normal door slammer style car, it doesn't really matter if you're running 6 seconds at the quarter mile or if you're running 10 seconds at the quarter mile. You'll get at least 20 passes out of a set of tires generally.
Is drag racing? We've got the track in Lebanon Valley. We've got Spencer Speedway.
Yep.
There's Empire.
Right.
And there's I think there's one. Is there one in Lancaster?
There's one in Lancaster, right?
And then there's one that you can see on 90, heading towards Pembroke.
That's Lancaster.
That's Lancaster. Right.
That's Lancaster.
That's Lancaster.
So there's a quick 6 just up and down 104 or 90. Is drag racing healthy in New
No.
York? It's not.
I would say. I would say it's not like it was 10 years ago.
Is anything
Tough business.
Is anything like it was 10 years ago?
That's honestly,
I don't
think
us-
it is. I really don't. I mean, I know that it's been obviously from the corporate standpoint. You talk to NASCAR or NHRA, and the corporate guys are going to get up in front of the camera and they're going to tell everybody how great everything is. But there's no doubt that you look at the stands for a NASCAR race today, and it's not like it was 10 or 15 years ago.
Sure.
And NHRA is certainly the same. From a local racing standpoint, I don't know. I guess it'd be interesting to know kind of car count-wise how things are today. Around here there's been a lot of changes with regards to local ownerships with the track. I mean, a couple of years ago, Lancaster was potentially going to go under, and so they're under new management now, and things seem to be improving. But
Dunn Tire
Spencer's-
Raceway Park.
yeah, so Dunn
Yeah.
Tire is Lancaster.
Yeah.
Well, it actually was Dunn Tire. I don't even know.
I don't know what it is
It's
now.
just Lancaster Dragway now, I believe. Yeah.
Is it?
Yeah, yeah. So I mean, they literally went from the brink of extinction to now having a program doing some interesting things. Rob Kozak, he's one of the promoters that has been really instrumental, and he came up with the idea to basically do a Buffalo Street Outlaws. So. I'm sure you've probably seen the show on Discovery Street Outlaws, right? So we basically have our own series like that, running those things, and I mean it's an exciting class to watch. It's first one to the finish line win, so it's an expensive class to run.
Sure.
But spectator friendly.
But
People wanna
spectator
pay
friendly,
and
right?
They want to watch it.
And people can identify with the cars out there. They understand it, and they're fast, exciting cars.
Are they doing a good job of marketing that so that these personalities are known and people can identify? I mean, they identify with the car, but can they identify with the car and say,
No.
I can't wait to go see?
Yeah. It's funny you say that, because that was something I thought about when you invited me on the show. I'm like, what are the types of things I want to talk about? And, one of the things that again, this Rob Kozak, he's done a good job of really trying to convince the tracks around here that they need to market the drivers better. Yeah, the cars are cool, and that's one thing with drag racing that's a little bit different, is that you can go out to the track and just see a huge variety of cars. And again, not trying to take away from any of the circle track, but if you're running a modified, basically every modified, if you strip the paint off of it, every modified looks exactly the same as every other modified because of the way the rules are set.
Sure.
In our classes, basically from a body style chassis standpoint, you can pretty much do whatever you want. So you have a huge,
As long as you make the weight
you have a
and-
huge variety, which gets people interested. But at the end of the day, you're not coming out and rooting for a car. You're not going to come out to the track and say, I want to see a Corvette win today. You're rooting for the guy.
driver.
And you look at NASCAR
Yeah.
and what they've done. It's like people get up in the stands and they root
They
for
want a
Casey Kane or Earnhardt or whoever, right?
Right.
It's the guy. They're not rooting for the Dodge Intrepid or whatever the heck they're racing these days. And that's something that NHRA, especially not even NHRA, but even the local tracks even more so probably need to do as far as really try to market and promote the drivers and the personalities and better than what they do. And heck, if I got to be a bad guy, I'll be the Chael Sonnen of drag racing and stand up in front of everybody and start calling people out.
He's going to have to edit all that out.
Yes. Yeah.
Nope, that's fine. No one's even going to worry about that.
No.
So
That's why we do our series. The 990 series is just to have another program. I mean, that wasn't a series that the track did. That was a series that it was there, and then I took it over and did it for a few years, and then Jay took it over. It's just to bring more money in for a group of guys to race for. And
guys that race our series like to race 990. They like the Pro Tree. They like the heads up. Again, still really bracket racing at the end of the day, but we really enjoy racing this style class. And again, there's a good contingent of 16, 20 guys around from this area, and we do pull people from fairly far away. We have regular guys that come out, 3-4 hours away. Got a guy from Pittsburgh, Eric McEarley, comes up every time he can. He'll be there this weekend with his
Canadians.
A couple of Canadians come down from 3 hours away. Tony Fabiano and the McMillans.
We haven't pulled any of my Division 1 friends yet.
Right, but
they don't want to drive so far. But
and part of this is not only giving the guys an opportunity to race at a quality track. Which Empire, Jerry Scacia, the new owner, I mean, he's just done a fantastic job with taking money and putting it back into the track and really making improvements there. So, I mean, the track, the property is a quality facility, which guys like. He makes it racer-friendly. You can come and camp out. And that's what we're doing really this weekend is, we're trying to do a double race. Our second race on Sunday was originally scheduled a week from now, so we pulled that in a week so that we could do a double race again to make it friendly for the guys that are coming from Pittsburgh and 3-4 hours away. So they could come out and camp out and do 2 races in one weekend. And then you get some sponsors on board and make it so that the purse is reasonable and attractive to guys. They'll come out and race.
what's somebody stand to win in this?
Generally, I would say that you're looking around $1,000 to win.
$1,200 with a calculator.
Yeah. When we'll do some side bets at times. So we've made it. I think the most that I've seen this season 13? Was a guy who walked away with about $1,375. Was
that me?
No, it was that was Jablonski.
Was it Jablonski?
Yeah, John Jablonski. Yeah, he won $1,375, which is a nice weekend for $100 entry.
Do you win by round, or is it all just in the finals?
No, it's by round. So we pay back. So we pay basically winner, runner-up, and the semifinalists. So and basically in our series, let's call it, if you win 2 rounds of competition, you're going to go home with some money.
Correct.
Yeah. And generally
the ratio of rounds that you have to go compared to what we win is really outstanding compared to the other classes at the track.
You do it 4 rounds and you win 2 rounds, you're in the money.
Right.
Yeah.
What's it cost to enter one? I mean, are we talking $300 to enter? Are we talking $50 to enter?
Yeah, our normal entry is $75, and then again, we usually do what's called a Calcutta. It's basically a side bet, and so we do a $25 Calcutta. So if you're all in for the weekend, you're going to spend $100 entry. And this is something that John and I have talked about in the past. That the entry fee for the car and driver is really just a very small fraction of the amount of money that you spend to go out and go racing for a weekend. So guys don't mind spending $100, $150 to enter if at the end of the day the payout is better, because it costs them $150 in fuel in the rig to tow out there. So.
$75 to enter is on 15 cars is like $11.70. So I mean, you're not even making a huge dent in the purse off of your entries. You've got to have some sponsors.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, we have. Tread City Tire, they've been our title sponsor since the beginning. Donnie Razor's just been really great to work with. And if it wasn't for our sponsors, guys like Tread City Tire and Jansen Racing Engines, who, does John's Motors, if it wasn't for those guys, we couldn't have the payout that we do. And that's been really big, and they've been really essential in us being successful.
Mm-hmm. So, this weekend, it's $1,200 to win, I think, maybe $1,500 to win for the big cars, and in Brookfield, which is where we're going to be for Wheel Days, which is a big derby. There's a guy from Saskatchewan, who's towing in to come and be part of this. He's driving like 30 hours. He keeps posting pictures from Saskatchewan, Canada. He's coming down through Minnesota and down through Illinois, Iowa, Illinois, Indiana, across. Basically going to get on 90 and drive all the way out here, get up through Erie, and come across to Well, you've heard of Josh Decker on the crash course. He's staying at his place, and he's going to come and run in wheel days.
Yeah, that's a long haul.
It's a long haul for
$1,500.
Yeah, he's got to win it. He's got to get through a heat and then get through the feature.
Even.
He's not breaking even. He's got $1,500 in his shell.
No. Yeah, I was talking about the trip.
It was just a trip he's going to have. So I mean, you guys are kind of on, but you only have to beat 15 other guys instead of having to beat 75 other guys.
Right.
Well,
that's right.
You
got to beat 4 other guys.
4 guys.
That's right.
I have to beat 4 guys. That's it to win my class.
I like it. It's
You know what I mean?
it's interesting. I mean, this whole I don't want to say that it's foreign, but it's definitely not something I've had a lot of time around.
I was telling Jay in the way here. I says, I think Chris wants to get a little more.
I'm all for it.
Yeah.
Whatever's gonna bring us more content, get us a chance to get the 31st lap back where it is. We're gonna have to make it the final pass or something. We'll have to change the name when we go live. Or
Yeah, we don't have many laps.
No.
Guys do call them laps, right? I just put a lap on the car, but yeah, we.
Yeah, but we can't.
It's
have
a lap.
We can't have that.
The lap.
right.
Yeah.
If we go live, we'll probably market it under Crash Course stuff anyway. To be honest, just because the Crash Course brand has a greater following at this point. But
yeah.
We've
Well,
definitely wanted
get you out
to.
to
How many? You talked about how you got to dial the car in and you got to tune the car. It's not just a matter of looking at a particular time and modulating the throttle so that it only takes you 9.9 seconds to get down there. You got to tune the thing. But what kind of engineering degrees and abacuses do you have in the pits when you're going through and you're looking at water grains and track temperature and ambient temperature and humidity and all this other stuff that goes into tuning it when you're trying to focus in on a particular timestamp? How much of that plays into
All
this?
of it.
Yeah.
Don't you agree?
Yeah. It's
All of it.
Yeah.
Everything. What the track conditions, track temp.
Are you
weather.
40 yet?
No, thank God.
Okay, I didn't think so. See,
37. Let's
I'm
back up here.
I'm probably more the old school racer than John is. So these cars today are far more automated than I would like to see them. What? Yeah. I mean, if it were up to me, we would take all the stuff out and it would go back to tuning the car and the driver in the car, and that's the way it would be. But that's the old school part of me coming out.
You mean like
right?
super gas in the 80s?
Super gas in the 80s, absolutely.
Where you'd slow the car down with a bolt underneath your throttle.
Right.
You literally just slow it down. Now we have,
Right.
Yeah.
And we won't.
But,
that'd be we'd spend a whole show going over that argument.
Yeah.
So we won't get into that. But the cars nowadays. So
When you want to schedule that, I'm all into that. I mean,
Hey.
start talking 70s and 80s drag racing. That was a special kind of driver then.
oh,
It was
It's different.
crazy.
Oh,
yeah.
yeah.
So you tell me.
But
You tell me
again-
when you want us to come back. We'll come back.
Yeah, this is pretty comfortable,
but-
actually.
yeah.
This is pretty good.
That one actually, that chair reclines. You can kick
Does
your
it?
seat right up. Oh yeah.
That's probably not a good idea.
that's-
Next thing you know, you'll be having me Jack and Cokes over here too. And
Actually, it's not bad.
You know what? It's funny you should bring that up.
we have drinking games on the show.
It's happened before. I'm not saying that it happens regularly,
Oh,
but I'm not
okay.
saying it's never happened
My
either.
God.
All right.
Imagine that.
I'm going to try and
2 or 3 beers in, we're all
I'm going to
lit.
try and stay sober. Yeah. But yeah, the cars they have a lot of technology in them. So I mean, you obviously have your engine, transmission, drivetrain. I mean, which standard, modified or dirt car style engine, if you will, or in the race car. I mean, obviously it's tuned specifically for drag racing rather than circle track racing. But from there, the electronics, that's what really I'm talking about with regards to the technology.
Mm-hmm.
And so I have a timer box that's in the car. Pretty much every competitor these days in Super Gas or Super Red has a timer box with individual timers. So I have a timer that sets the delay of the launch of the car from the start.
Mm-hmm.
And then I have a timer in the car that sets the throttle position as I'm going down the track. So there's 2 sets of timers in there. Now, to figure out how you set the timers as far as the performance going down the track, now you have to look at, that's where you start looking at your weather conditions. So I am, and this is one of the reasons why I'd love to see all this stuff go away, I'm a meteorologist out at the track.
We all have to be.
Yeah, it's a big part of it. And I am constantly, from the moment that I get there in the morning until I am out of competition, I am watching the weather. Temperature, humidity, relative temperature, humidity, barometric pressure. Like I said, you're looking at water grains, you're looking at wind speed and direction. Then all those calculations we're taking and putting them into a laptop and making predictions, if you will, with regards to what you think, how well do you think the car is going to hook or lead the starting line, and then trying to figure out, all right, now what's our timer settings need to be. We have pagers that run from laptops. So we leave our laptop at our rig. I carry a pager around with me then down in the staging lane, so I'm getting paged updates from my computer system every 30 seconds telling me here's what the new timer setting is.
Like I said, it's a whole other show. There's a lot of bells and whistles on these race cars to make them run 990. You still got to know how to use them and know how to do everything. So it takes a lot of experience.
You're not just sitting in the car and pushing a button.
No, and that's what everybody thinks. Everyone at work says,
I don't have that.
Button. I says,
I don't have that. I don't have that misconception that you're just riding. I mean, you're not just aiming the car. You still have to drive it, and then of course the computer is only taking its logarithms and telling you what it thinks is the ideal setup. In a perfect world, the computer says, okay, your car should run this in this weather. Here's the number to put in, but there's still 20 other variables that you still got to know about that the computer doesn't.
Now you've gone up and you do your burnout, right? And let's say you do a cruddy burnout. Well, now there goes your numbers. Now the car is going to be slow because you didn't do a proper burnout. Yeah. Or you staged the car incorrectly at the starting line. Mm-hmm. Maybe you're not in the groove, or you stage it too deep. Now your numbers are going to be different. So
there's a million variables.
Yeah, there really is. There really is. We try and take as many out of them as we can with the electronics in the car and the solenoids for controlling the throttle and the shifter and stuff like that.
Sure.
But yeah, there's still driver aspect into it, and the big part of the driver really is the reacting to the starting line, and then more so is driving the finish line. Again, the pros, I don't really care where my competitor is as long as I'm in front of them. That's all I care. For us, we can't do that. So it's a real skill to be able to, in my case, like John mentioned before, his car is faster than mine. So going down we're getting to the finish line, he's closing on me probably 20 feet a second, 25 feet a second. So I'm looking at the finish line, turning around and looking to see where he is, and then trying to judge.
Actually, it's like 250 feet a second. At 100.
Well, no, what you're closing on me.
Oh,
your closing
rate?
speed, yeah.
Yeah. I was like...
Yeah. So, and then from there, you're trying to judge and say, all right, am I going to beat him to the finish line by 6 inches or less? And if it's more than 6 inches, all right, now I want to try and close that up. That's a hard thing to do when you're going 150 miles an hour. That's where the seat time comes in, is that you not only have to be comfortable with the speed, but now you have to really get comfortable with the judging your performance versus your competitor's performance and where you are on the track.
Unreal. I mean, it's a lot of thinking. It's so much chess happening in 9 seconds.
It's a gigantic chess game.
Yeah.
In 9 seconds.
That's really a great analogy. It
yes,
really
it
is. Yeah, it really is. And, you go into your chess match against your competitor having some type of strategy. Generally, in my opinion, the better racers have some type of strategy laid out as they go into that round of competition.
Oh, yeah.
But that very quickly gets taken out a lot of times.
You talked about the burnout. The purpose of that is to get the engine up to temperature so the fuel is going to burn the right way, and you get your tires sticky so that you can
more
take
tires.
off.
It's tires up to
just
operating
solely tires.
Yeah. I would say it's mostly tires, but what we're trying to do really, again, consistency is key.
Well, you guys are on gas, right? You're not running.
I'm on alcohol.
I'm on
gas. Alcohol. You're on gas,
and I'm on racing gas. Yeah. We're trying to, again, be consistent. So it is heating the tires up and cleaning them off, but at the same point in time, I know that for my car to be consistent, I want to be pulling into the stage beams basically 160 degree water temperature every single time. The burnout process does still help that along, right? Mm-hmm. If I decide to do too hard of a burnout, next thing I know I'm into the staging beams at 170, and my car might not run as fast at 170 as it did at 160 degrees.
Right.
We want everything exactly the same.
Right.
Mm-hmm. Everything. Engine temp, tire temp.
Is this consistency a lifestyle? Are you? I
think we overloaded them.
Make some generalizations of my conversation with John. Is he's very precise in everything. There's a lot of details in everything. He probably takes pills for OCD.
I wish I did. I think it even gets as bad as sometimes like what you have for breakfast and what you drink the night. Like
people are creatures of habit.
Yeah.
Some people are afraid to drink caffeine before the race, or they don't want to eat. Race on a full stomach. I mean, Oh yeah.
Well, I mean, you had mentioned
I'm
before,
just-
Chris, as far as, nerves go, right? I mean, normal race day for me, I don't eat during the day. And it's...
But if you did, you'd be out of your element. That's what
absolutely.
I'm saying.
Yeah,
Right.
absolutely. Yeah.
It
yeah.
changes this whole mental, I don't know.
Yeah, and it's funny, too, because it definitely is, and I'm sure this happens with any racer, regardless of what kind of racing you're doing or motorsport you're doing. I shouldn't even call it just racing, whatever type of competition probably even. Once we get in the car, that's when my nerves in particular calm down. So in a lot of cases, I'll be in the staging lanes waiting for us to run. And I'll get to the point where I'll start feeling sick. I'll go sit in the car and sit in the car.
Just zone out.
Yeah, it's like, now I'm
Really?
okay. I'm in my
Yeah,
element
your
again,
adrenaline
right?
gets going, and
Yeah.
Yeah,
We're doing
my father-in-law and my wife, they don't, we can't even eat peanuts at the track.
Well,
They
no.
have
I mean,
anything
that's-
green, they're all superstitious about
Yeah,
it.
that's two huge no-nos.
Tommy's very superstitious, aren't you, Tom?
Well, now that I know that, I'm going to use that against Tom this weekend. Eat peanuts, some green
Yeah, just-
peanut pistachios, I guess. That'd be the worst thing, right?
I love pistachios. You have any pistachios?
So did you know that John's father-in-law, Tommy Allen,
Yeah.
runs in the same
Supergas
series as us?
also, yeah.
So, John and Tommy are both in the top 5 in points heading into this weekend. So both of them have a very, very good shot. Really, if the top 5 guys, any one of them could go home the series champion
You
this year.
give points per round?
You get points per round, yeah. So it's, I think it's 60. We do 60 attendance points, and then it's 20 points per round. We do a 16-point bonus to the number 1 qualifier, and we give bonus points to the top 5 qualifiers. So at the end of the day, if you end up winning the race, you're generally going to walk out of there with 140 to 160 points somewhere in there. And right now, I think the top 5 are only separated by 50 points, 60
Wow.
points. It's
You'll
really
stress me out, don't you?
It's close. It's close.
That's crazy.
Yeah.
That's really close. I mean, when you factor in the fact you could tune your car perfect and you miss something as simple as the burnout and you're out in the first round, your
Anything.
title hopes are done.
Right.
That's it.
Yeah.
Yeah, and that's the thing that's really tough with drag racing. It can be a really humbling sport because of the fact
You
that
just line up next to the wrong
there-
person at the
there-
wrong time.
Well, you run up the wrong person, you lose, but there's no second chances. Or there are
we
very,
don't-
very few times that there's second chances. And we say there's one way to win and there's a million ways to lose.
Yeah.
And in
Right.
a lot of cases, the guy who loses is the guy who screws up first. And it's amazing. We don't do it. In regular ET racing, they do buybacks. Which I have to say is it's a moneymaker for the track, but it is nice to have that second chance when you go out and you had the car dialed and you were doing everything perfectly, and then you made that one split-second mistake,
Little
and it's
bitty.
like, oh man, I wish I could have that back. So buybacks gives you the opportunity to go back and kind of insert yourself into a loser's bracket, and if you were to win, then potentially get back into main competition. Like I
But
said,
we don't have buybacks.
we don't do buybacks.
Right.
You
Yeah.
lose, you're out.
You lose, you're cooking out on the
Right,
grill.
right. yeah, and it's very, like I said, it's very humbling at times.
I can relate to the whole nerves through the course of the day. You know, driving out to a live event, I'm nervous all the whole way, thinking we forgot something. We get out there, and I'm not even remotely settled until we check internet signal, and then I'm still not calm until the feature's only got like 2 or 3 cars left.
Right.
And then at that point, we're not dropping any frames. Everything's stable. We can settle in and we're calm. But if we leave at 7 in the morning, and the Derby doesn't end until 10 o'clock at night, I'm not calm until 9:59. And it's just, because there's so much riding on it. This is a free stream, what we do with the Demolition Derby side. And I know we're talking a lot of the Derby stuff on 31st Lap, and Crash Course airs on Monday nights at 6 o'clock here on Finger Lakes 1. But when we go live and we're in that element and we've got, cars lined up and we're checking internet signal and stuff like that, I am very rarely settled. I can look fine from the outside, but my stomach's inside out. You talk about eating during the day. I'll just go throw it out. There's no point in even trying. But those nerves can play on you, and then that adrenaline thing, that can certainly change it too. I can certainly see where it would make your right foot a whole lot heavier. I mean, the only racing experience even remotely close that I've got is like when I had a Magnum wagon with a 6-cylinder motor in it. The pistons were about the size of like that. I did an SCCA Pro Solo event at the airport, the old landing strip at the Army Depot.
Yeah.
And they put me in a division with 2 BMWs, a Mustang, a Camaro, a 4-door Dodge Charger, and 2 Datsun 240Zs. And I finished 5th out of all of them, and it was all based on time and about consistency and break points and stuff, and it just blew my mind. It was just so grating trying to make it work, and you're waiting there in line, like all those descriptions, and there's just nothing to dial you in except for the comfort of what's familiar, and saying that it's easier to go sit in the car. In Demolition Derby a lot, we see guys that are in line waiting to go, and they're sitting in the car, and I can't help but wonder now after you said that, you kind of put it in my mind that they're getting away from everything, just like you were describing.
Oh, yeah.
But like my buddy Andy, not to get off course.
Andy Wolfhanger is the guy that worked with Kenny Swingle. He's been on the crash course a number of times. They put on the Caledonia Crash and Jam Festival, which I got word that it is very much likely that we will have back on the schedule for 2017, which I'm excited to hear about. That's good. I won't have a wedding that weekend, so I'll actually be able to go to that event myself instead of putting all of my equipment. I basically took my baby and handed it to the 4 guys and said, do your best and don't break it. And they did fine, but I'm excited to be there. But Andy's been on the show a number of times, and you've come along to know Andy. And
I've known him my whole life. But what I was saying is, and that, not to get off course, but I run derbies with these guys and stuff, and you're sitting in the car with your helmet on before you go out there, and you're sitting there thinking, wait a minute, I'm about to go out in the dirt with 15 cars, and we're all going to go crazy and run into each other, and I'm about to get in an accident.
Yeah.
That's a whole different feeling than drag racing.
Yeah. I am about to take a car that I've just spent the last 6 months building and get into 17 car accidents as fast as I can.
Yeah, and go nuts.
Yeah, and I have to say
that's a whole different adrenaline level than what we do. Different,
yeah,
not bad.
Definitely,
different.
yeah, definitely. And I have to say that I could definitely see where I've never competed in anything like that. I mean, the very first time, I could see where I'd be really nervous. I have no idea what to expect, right? And that's just,
it's all strategy.
I think back to the same first pass that I ever had in my car. So my car, my dad owned my car's a 1963 Corvette. My dad's owned it since 1964. And when I went and made my first pass in it, there was no timers and throttle stops. There was none of that. So there was no way to slow the car down. It was what it was. And I remember that very first pass being so nervous because I had no idea what this was going to feel like. I mean, I was going from driving a street car to now driving a 600 horsepower drag car. I was like, I don't know what this is going to feel like. It's going to pull the front wheels. Never done a wheel stand before. I was so nervous, and I could see feeling the same way getting behind the wheel of a derby car. It's like, I don't know what's going to be like when this guy T-bones into the side of me. Or what's it like?
I need to bring him in one, don't I?
Yeah.
With the circle track guys, what it's like going to the start and heading into the first turn.
Yeah, I mean, you're starting last and you've never been in a modified before, and all of a sudden you pile off into the first turn at Canandaigua with 23 of your closest friends that you're trying to pass, and it blows my mind. I've never been in a race car per se in that element to go around the track. The only time I've ever gone around a racetrack for that matter was Black Rock with Raceway when I was working down there. Both of those were in my Monte Carlo. And then Dean Reynolds took me around Syracuse, the mile at Syracuse. And again, this was in a Dakota. So, I mean, there's very little frame of reference for that. I've always come to it from media side. I've only been in one derby car for that matter, and I rode with Jeremy Gully in a truck.
Oh, my gosh.
And the seat was broken. So it's on the track. It's slamming back and forth. And he's, Jeremy's out of his mind to begin with. And one time he goes forward, the seat comes flying forward. I snap my head forward, and my legs come up off the floor, and my legs smash into the dash bar, and it splits my shin open this far, and it goes right to the bone. And that's where,
that on your Facebook.
Yeah, that's where that came from.
I was wondering what that was from.
I had 6 stitches on the inside holding the meat together, and 6 on the outside. That was my kid. If it was just recent, that was my boy. My boy tore his knee open after his second day of school, and he just got his stitches out. He massacred his knee, but they got him all stitched up. He's back to business, and he thinks he's a hockey player. He's missing his tooth. He's got scars. He had a black eye at one point.
He's young,
he loved
he'll be
it.
all right.
He loved it. He's a big Sabres fan too. Just if he's a glutton for punishment.
Again, I can identify. I'm originally from Buffalo, so yeah, I can identify.
So your dad's car was a '63 Corvette.
Yes.
It was converted to a race car in '64.
So no, he bought it in 1964, and it was basically let's call it a stock 63 Corvette 327 2.4 4-speed car, single 4-speed car, and he basically had it on the road until 1970. And in 1970, it was getting to be a hot rod at that point in time, and So I'm dating myself here, but so I was born in 1970. So he was expecting his first child, opening a business, and at that point, he said, "All right, I'm going to take the car off the road for a year and convert it to a race car." So it's been a race car full time since 1970.
Wow. And you still have it now?
Yeah, it's still.
How many facelifts has this thing had since it was converted to a race car? Is it still pretty original terms of the chassis and body and stuff like that?
The body.
No, the body's still right.
The body is still
a real 63 body.
Still a real 63 body.
Yeah.
I mean, the hood is. I have the original hood. My dad kept all the original parts that he could, but like any hot rod or any guy that's into cars, the drivetrain is long gone. That was blown up and sold for higher performance parts.
Sure.
The frame itself, my car is what's called a back half car, so the front suspension is all stock, but as soon as you get to the firewall, everything from there back is all modified tube chassis.
Same idea as like some like the IMCA modifieds where they got to have the. Like basically, at one point the rules were it had to be like a Chevelle stub or a Camaro stub from the firewall forward.
Yep.
But then the rest of it could be,
whatever
home
you
built
want
or factory built, whichever way you wanted to go.
Yep.
So that's you've seen some changes in the sport then.
Oh yeah, there's been a lot. There's been a lot.
Oh yeah.
Yeah, I mean,
you've seen a lot more than me.
Yeah,
I started in the 90s.
Yeah, John's not old enough to remember. I was going out to the drag strip when he was still in diapers.
That's a lie.
But
your first pass is late 80s,
Mine was
86, 87, 88, or was it before that?
My first competition passes in a race car were in the late 80s, right?
Oh.
But yeah, I mean, I was going out to the track, with my dad, basically either just running around. I just loved to be with my dad. Oh yeah, I was going out to Lancaster every weekend with my dad when I was a kid in the 70s.
That's so
as
cool.
He raced, every single weekend. And at that point in time, we raced a class called Modified Eliminator. And it's very similar to NHRA's Comp Eliminator today, where basically it's cubic inches, so it's displacement and weight, basically is what it gets down to. And Modified was a really, really cool class, real high winding, high RPM, small blocks, heavy cars with five-speed transmissions, so 9,000 RPM, let the clutch out, just really, really cool stuff.
Yeah,
so cool.
The sound of those cars was just unbelievable, but it was extremely expensive, and that was really when drag racing started to die initially, because guys, especially locally, got
Did
sick
that price itself out of competition?
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, absolutely.
Did what?
Priced itself out of reasonability.
Yeah. And that's honestly, if
it's
you
still
look
doing that right now.
If you look
at
Comp Eliminator,
Comp
and
Eliminator
NHRA, it's
right
the
now
same
is-
thing, right?
Yeah.
It's just so expensive to do, and locally, guys just got tired of going out to their local track every week because why should I do this? Because I'm just going to go out to the track, and I know that these three guys are the guys that have the fastest cars because they have the most money. So,
is drag racing subject to the same problems? I don't know if "problems" is a fair word, as sometimes go-kart racing or motocross, where there's so many divisions, it's impossible to identify per se what you're seeing on the track unless you're intimate with it. It seems like there's so many different divisions that you just walk in, your mind's going to spin.
Well, I think what you mean is classes.
yeah.
Classes.
Yeah. Well, yeah. I don't know. It's kind of a. How do we answer that?
Yeah, I mean, certainly at a national, if you were to go to a big national event, an NHRA or IHRA national event, there are, 10, 12 different classes that they're running. So super gas, super street, super comp, top dragster, top sportsman, super stock, comp eliminator, 2 alcohol classes, 3 pro classes,
13 or
pro
14.
modified. So,
Yeah.
But I will say that in most cases, except for potentially the alcohol classes, every class that would go up there, you'd probably be able to tell the difference.
Yeah.
Oh, absolutely.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, I mean,
if
so-
you were in the grandstands with us, and we would say this is this class, and by the second day, you would have. I mean, it's
Now-
just different.
Building from that, given that NHRA has their hierarchy, IHRA has their hierarchy,
Yep.
there's no unsanctioned local tracks anymore, so that hierarchy falls over, or are local tracks creating their own divisions that's further muddying the pool?
Oh, yeah, there's no doubt that local tracks.
Outlaw tracks?
Yeah, there's outlaw tracks.
There's a
So,
few,
again,
yeah.
you talk about the street outlaw style classes. I
Sure.
mean, those were really born against the will, if you will, of the big sanctioning bodies. I mean, Justin Shearer from Street Outlaws, I mean, initially, NHRA sent all those guys letters basically saying, you need to cease and desist, otherwise we're going to revoke your credentials to race at an NHRA national event.
Right.
Yeah.
And then what happened is there was a change in upper management at NHRA, and they decided, hey, you know what, rather than, let's call it, make these guys outlaws and boot them out and all the rest of it, why don't we embrace these guys and try and help and spread the word of, hey, you know what, kids, it's not good to...
Because they're on TV and they're popular, so NHRA is going to bring them in and
NHRA can market an appearance of these guys.
Oh, and
that's a special match race. I mean, that's a moneymaker, and it's putting butts in the seats, or at least in the past.
Exactly what they did at the U.S. Nationals at Indy with Justin.
Right, right. Yeah, and NHRA was really created to help stop street racing. So here again was an opportunity to take this well-known personality and put him in front of people at the NHRA track and have him speak out and say, yeah, look, we race on the streets, and initially we made it look like this was a outlaw illegal street race, but even though we're racing on the street, we close the course off. There's no cars driving down the street when we're racing, so it's like we're doing it in a safe manner. So it's like, if you're going to race, don't just go race out in the street. Take your car to the track and do it there.
Man, you grew up in the perfect time for drag racing. You were right in the middle of all the marketing with the little bit of the late side of the Sox and Martin stuff.
Right.
You were right in the middle of the Dom Prudhomme, the Snake and Mongoose marketing campaign with Hot Wheels.
Right.
I mean, that's...
Yeah, it was cool.
That's pretty cool.
I guess I would argue that I was still born 10 years too late, because I would have loved to have seen, Pro Stock, the class Pro Stock. I would have loved to have seen when that came about. I would have loved to have seen the AFX cars run in the mid '60s.
Right.
And then, let's say I was born in 1960s. I would have been a teenager at that point in time when the McEwen and Prudhomme thing was going down. But yeah, I was the kid, 7 years old at home, playing with my McEwen and Snake Hot Wheels.
So cool.
Setting up my drag. Oh, yeah, that was big. That was big. I am old, no doubt.
But I mean, Chris.
Why?
Well, I didn't realize you knew.
Oh, yeah, the AFX cars. The 64, there was no prettier car in racing than like a 64 Plymouth with ultra wheelbase, where everything was shoved forward and that back end went for days behind it. The two doors, those were... I got a couple of friends of mine that'll take the Lindbergh model kit and they'll do all the work to make it an ultra wheelbase car. Yeah. And they're not buying the kit; they're making it that way, and it's so much work. But those are so cool. And then you hear about you touched on the Outlaw. They were such rebels. They weren't necessarily marketed when the drag racing stuff started to come about, but the guys were certifiable. I mean, they're literally sitting on top of the engine in front of them, and you talk about, there's no torque tubes that are keeping the drive shaft from just,
well, and the other thing,
roller curtain your leg and stuff.
The other thing that was really great about those guys is that they were big innovators. So you couldn't go like you can today and go and call up Jags or Summit and just order everything you want and build your race car. Right. There was none of that. If you wanted to go fast, you had to basically go down to the junkyard, buy a set of heads from the junkyard and work them yourself. That's what you had to do. You wanted a different manifold than what you could find. Well, you needed to manufacture it yourself. And there was a ton of innovation. Those guys were unbelievable fabricators, and that's kind of one of the things that I just don't like about drag racing today is all that's gone out the window. So now you have so many cookie cutter cars, and like John said, you just take your credit card and, hey, here's my credit card.
Swipe it.
Send me an engine, send me a chassis, and it's not only just in the sportsman race ranks, but I mean it's even more so in the professional ranks. And I'm sure a lot of your viewers would probably agree. Like with the NASCAR, I mean, again, I grew up watching. Me and my dad used to watch the NASCAR races every Sunday. Sit at home and watch Petty and Pearson and Buddy watch all those guys, right? It was from my perspective, it was a lot cooler than it is now. I mean, if you took the decals off the cars that run now, you couldn't tell what one was compared to another, and that's how the pro cars are as well in drag racing.
Oh, yeah.
You take the decals off of them, they're all the same.
Right. I mean, the innovation that went into Hemi under glass to make those cars was crazy. And your dad was right in the middle of it when Richard Petty was a drag racer.
That's right.
With the 43 Junior. I mean, that with Richard Petty drove.
Yeah, Richard Petty.
Did not know that.
He when Mopar pulled out of NASCAR, they basically pulled Richard Petty too, and he stayed loyal with Mopar. He ran Plymouth Barracudas, if I remember
that's
right.
He drove
and he did not do the greatest.
No, he didn't do very well.
He needed to turn left a little bit.
Yeah.
Really?
Yeah, it was. But yeah, it was. There's some pictures of those, the
Yeah.
Petty Blue Barracudas with giant drag slicks on the back,
Yeah.
and it's just so cool. Big wraparound window.
Yeah.
Yeah, 63, 65, somewhere in there.
Oh. Wow.
Yeah,
I didn't know that.
That was with.
Yeah,
I don't know if it was with NHRA.
Did any of you guys
I want
know
to say
that?
that might have been with AHRA,
Yeah,
the American Hot Rod Association, which is long defunct. But
Right.
yeah, that was some cool stuff that was going on back there.
But you hit on the pro stocks, and in pro stock, in my mind, you're talking about, Jed Coughlin and Warren Johnson and guys
Right.
like that.
That's right.
That is my favorite division to watch, especially when you do the in-car cameras and they watch them shift, and it's 1, 2, 3, 4 parachutes, and that's
Right,
it.
right.
I love those because
I
they
think
still
the pro stocks
look.
lost a lot of its novelty, though. With,
They definitely did.
You
And
know,
again, if you were to go back again to in my opinion, pro stock, the last time pro stock was really
Bob
cool
Glidden.
was in the mid to
Right.
late 80s, somewhere in there. And then they started getting into the rules and regulations where it was, all right, we're cutting all the innovation out, and it's, here's the very strict standards with regards to body styles and engine displacements and transmissions and stuff like that. And yeah, today it's made it boring, in my opinion.
it's all fuel injection now, too. And
Yeah, they don't have the big
it's just
scoops on the hood.
Right.
Those used to
It's
be
just-
cool.
Which I'm okay with. I'm all right with
I
the
think
fuel
it's lost
injections.
a lot of people aren't really into it as much as they, what I mean?
Well, it's because all the cars, there's no difference in the cars, and
Right.
quite frankly, and I'll say another thing too, it gets back to the personalities as well. Today
Yeah.
in racing, and this is true in drag racing, it's true in Formula One, it's true in NASCAR, you have guys that are driving cars that are very well spoken, that are faces of corporations around the world.
Right.
You're not, in general, and I realize the NASCAR guys still throw punches at times after races, but in general, the personalities that you have in the sport are not the same as they were 20, 25 years ago. And, I mean, drivers today, especially the pro drivers, they're paid to do, let's call it, two things: drive the race car and do promotional appearances. That's what they do. You don't have a guy like Prudhomme that was the truck driver, mechanic, crew chief, driver, doing promotional appearances. I mean, Prudhomme did everything. Garlitz did everything. But today, like I said, you have a driver, and in a lot of cases,
Well, and in the pro session, but like at our level, you have to be a truck
we still
driver, a
do it all.
mechanic,
Yeah.
a weatherman.
Oh, yeah.
You know what I mean? And sportsman
Right.
level, that's we're still there. You know,
A driver like Eddie Hill would never make it now.
No.
That he wouldn't be anybody. No one would know who he was.
He
and
wouldn't even get a ride
Nope.
because it's like, I don't want a 60-year-old guy with white hair in the driver's seat of my car when I can have this pretty young, well-spoken 25-year-old female in the seat of my car. It's just the absolute. That's just the way it is. And
That's right.
And I can understand where corporate America's coming from. I mean, hey, if I'm going to spend millions of dollars sponsoring this car, I want to get a return on investment. And how do I do that? I get a fan following. And what do people want to hear about? Do they want to hear about some old rich white guy that has his race car that he likes to do as a hobby, and when he's not at the drag strip, he's off eating caviar? No, they don't want to hear that. They want to hear about some young kid that's come up through the ranks and he's the new phenom or
You were my kid's age during the 76 Daytona 500. You got to live that. I want to be you so bad. That's so cool.
Man, Jay, he's really making you feel.
I don't mean to make you feel old. I just that is
This is
for
gonna turn
me
into an R-rated show.
That block of time is that it identified so much for racing as a whole. It was so formative. It was such an innovative time. We had all these regulations coming down that were forcing issues for racers all over the place with fuel availability.
Right.
And it changed the sport of racing so much that, and that was when Winston really got involved with NASCAR. It was 1972. So that was the first real leg with the corporate backing for national tours and TV deals started to come around, and it was a change, but that element of purity was able to last in the early 80s with Cal Yarborough and Darrell Waltrip, how he would run his mouth, and personalities of David Pearson, more late 70s. And Richard Petty was still an icon, and he was able to bank his 200th win in the 80s, and it was such a formative time. And then locally here with the dirt modifieds, they finally got a unified set of rules, and everything that had been happening through the 70s had been more streamlined with the formation of dirt in 1976, and then that had evolved a little bit more, and everybody was on the same page, and Syracuse started to become even grander. than it was, and it was such a pivotal time for racing. And the only frame of reference that I have is to look back on it and talk to the people that were able to live it. And I mean, I don't know if people that were living it then appreciated it or they hated it because they were purists that remembered how it was in the 60s and they didn't need all this control.
That's probably true.
But for us now, I mean, John and I are close in age, and he's still several years older than me, but we're close in age, and he looks older. But when
that he does,
don't look older. Couple wrinkles.
But when we look back at those are times like we wish we could just have seen it once. Regardless of whether you're going in a straight line waiting for the light to come up in your lane or whether you're waiting for a checkered flag after 500 miles.
Right. Yeah, and I don't know. I mean, I remember growing up as a kid, there was a demilitarization zone, let's call it, between drag racers and the circle track guys. So it's like, we didn't mix.
That's still there, isn't it?
Yeah, I think so, but I think there's more mutual respect.
Well, Dale Earnhardt Jr. was just at Charlotte.
Was he?
Was it the Fall Nationals?
Well, I don't know what they're calling it.
I don't even the national event last week in Charlotte.
Yeah.
Dale Jr. was down there watching.
Sure.
What I mean? So, I mean.
Yeah, I think there's more, like I said, mutual respect between the two and a little bit of crossover. And I think racers today have realized, drag racers have realized, hey, you know what, there's some technology from the circle track stuff that I can potentially apply to my car here and vice versa. So I can't really say, but I mean, I remember as a kid growing up, we'd never went out to Lancaster to watch, but if you drove by the track on a Saturday night when they were racing, that place was packed.
Oh, yeah.
Now, and I can't say because I wasn't intimately involved what happened that that kind of went away overall. But my guess is that there was probably a whole bunch of different things that took place with regards to rules and regulations and sanctioning bodies and track management that basically made this thing go from wow.
Technology has been a huge problem for racing because you can't work on a car anymore.
Yeah.
You have to go to college in order to change the spark plugs in half of these things because they got so many covers and sensors and all this other stuff.
Now, I don't even know. I mean, a street stock today, if you were to have a street stock, are they all normally aspirated cars if you were to race street stock still?
Yeah.
Yeah, but street stock's not street stock like it used to be.
It's not.
This is a good buddies about trying it.
You hit on something that I wanted to kind of jump back to our conversation now that we've somewhat concluded
Huge
memory
tangent.
lane. Yeah, we've gone a lot of different places.
Memory lane
Conversation, but you hit on something earlier, and then you talked about that divide between circle trackers or dirt trackers and drag racers. You said something earlier about the motors. It's similar to what you would see in a dirt car. Now, Crate Sportsman, they have the Crate 602, and Crate Late Models with a Crate 604.
Yeah.
Where are we in that, and what are you looking for in your motor? Are you looking top end? Are you looking low end so that you can get off the line? What are you looking for in your motor? And when you say it's similar to a dirt car, what are we comparing the motors to? I mean, is this a custom-built motor? Is it a crate motor? Is it sealed? Is it?
Well, I would say it depends really on the class that you run. For our particular class, I would say
anything.
Yeah, I mean, it really can be.
There's no rules.
You're unlimited motors.
Yeah,
you can run anything you want. I don't care if it's a Cummins diesel.
Yeah.
If it's going to run the index, and you could go ahead. There's no.
In the type of class that we ran, and again, this is kind of an advanced topic, but so you could run 9.9 seconds from starting line to finish line, either go like gangbusters from the starting line, and then, let's call it, hit the brakes, come to a complete dead stop, and inch across the finish line, or you could inch away from the starting line, and then go like gangbusters and go across at 9.9 seconds at 400 miles an hour, right?
Right.
So you're still traversing that quarter mile in the same amount of time, but in one case at the finish line you're going at a massive amount of speed, in another case you're going very, very slow. And the trend has been over the course of the last 20 years that guys have figured out that if you're the faster car at the finish line, that you generally control the race.
Yeah.
It's easier, number one, because you're back and you're watching the race unfold in front of you. So instead of having to do the turn around, look behind you type of thing, you're just staring straight ahead. And it's very easy now to look at the finish line and your competitor as you're closing on them. But in addition, again, me and John race. John's car is 15 miles an hour faster than mine. If he gets by me, I'm never going past him again unless he hits the brakes or messes up and lets me go by him. There's nothing I can do. My foot is already to the floor. There's nothing I can do to make my car go any faster. But if he's in front of me, he can slow down. So he's controlling the race. So what guys have been doing is they've been building more and more powerful engines to make their cars go faster and faster and faster. But at the end of the day, there's no rules. You can do it any way you want. And guys have experimented with, I want to run 990 at 100 miles an hour. So that way, when I'm running one of these guys that are running 990 at 160, it's going to be very difficult for them to judge me because they're closing on me so fast.
Yeah.
Right.
So there's a whole bunch of different things you can do, and it's in our class, it's almost personal preference.
So
whatever your budget allows.
Yeah.
Do you want top end speed or do you want low end torque to get off the line?
It's just basically more
It's
what you want on the top.
Yeah, I would say in general, most of the guys are going for more top end speed.
Yeah.
But yeah, it really varies from driver to driver. Like I said, there's guys that don't want to necessarily go 160 miles an hour, and you ask the question in a lot of cases, and I'm sure this is true again in the circle track. You wonder why is this guy doing it this way from a combination standpoint? In a lot of cases with drag racing, you have guys that do combinations because they like the ride. That's the way they like it.
Right.
And it's like, could they be more competitive doing it another way? Well, maybe, but you know what? They like their car the way it is, and that's the way they're going to leave it. So,
Sure.
But yeah, you can do anything you want. I will say that in our class, I mean, I don't know there's anybody running anything but a power glide. At least
2-speed transmission, power glide. Yeah,
yeah.
that's pretty much.
That's become pretty much the de facto standard in drag racing. Slower cars will still run 3 speeds.
Yeah, but I would say 2 speeds is 98%.
Yeah, unless you are from a class rule standpoint made to run a different style of transmission. Most guys are running automatic transmissions. Manually shifted automatic transmissions, but
manually shifted automatic.
Yeah.
Just no clutch.
Right.
Let's call it that way. No clutch and
Air
torque.
shifters.
Yeah.
Yeah.
We had a buddy of ours that drives derby cars has a top loader 5-speed. And he's in there driving derbies, one hand on the wheel, one hand on the shifter, way up here,
Really?
working all. Oh my! He'll take off. One time he came across in Topeka. I was telling you about Topeka before
Right.
the show started. He took off across track and hit 3rd gear, cleared somebody's bumper and hit the block so hard that they were picking chunks of the pistons and connecting rods off the track.
What?
Now,
I'm telling you, man, you got to get out. You got to get out with
But
it.
I'm
Derbies
sure-
he goes to is a whole nother
But I'm
level.
sure some guys would look at that and say, "Why is he doing that?" Right?
He does that because he's the man. That's exactly why he does it. Mike Brown is the man.
Okay.
He's Derby Jesus. He looks like Jesus. I mean, he's the man. He does that because he is.
he looks like Jesus.
He does. He's the baddest man on the planet when he comes across and catches 3rd gear.
Wow. Well, I'm surprised because what we see in drag racing a lot is one guy goes out and has some success, and then it's a big copycat sport, right? Everybody else does it. So I'm surprised that
Keep up with the Joneses.
Right, exactly.
Yep.
Yeah, and there's been some pretty crazy ones too. Where again,
Eddie Brick used to top stop.
well, right.
I don't remember that.
Right.
What'd
Well, do
he
you
do?
remember? Do you remember the big craze with the yellow tinted sunglasses?
What?
Oh yeah.
Well, that's not even so much
The- the-
sunglasses.
the-
It's even the shields.
The thought was, well, initially at the time when these first came out, I can't remember the brand name that they were, but they were
Blue
touted-
block?
They
Like
were
blue blockers?
They were like blue blockers,
Yeah,
yeah. But
yeah.
they were being marketed as you can react to the lights quicker, and it's like, look, you're not speeding up light. Light is still traveling at the same speed, whether you're looking at it through a yellow lens, a blue lens, or a
Right.
red lens. Now, it might change the contrast, make you see the light up differently, right? But you're not speeding up the light. But it's like, yeah, and late in the mid-'80s, I mean, they sold 1 million pair of these sunglasses because there was a couple of guys that ran them in the pro circuit. They were very successful. And it's like, yeah, I got to get myself a pair of $100 yellow sunglasses.
Oh, that was before my time.
Yeah. Like I said, there's a lot of crazy stuff like that. But hey, good for the marketing guys for selling 1 million pairs of sunglasses.
That's right. You got to sell them somehow.
Right. That's right.
Wow.
But, so what's been the most unexpected thing that you've come across? Like this is never going to work, and then all of a sudden more and more people start having them. Something in transmissions? Is it something in timing? Is it something?
That's gonna.
Well, I mean, you probably haven't. Again, you haven't been around long enough. I mean, the automatic transmission. I mean, for me, the automatic transmission was certainly a big one. So, I mean, my dad was one of the last guys on the planet to run a manual transmission. But in the
mid-70s and prior, everyone had sticks.
Yeah, everyone had sticks, right? Nobody ran an automatic, and so my uncle he ran in pro stock at the very, very early days. He was the original driver of the Motown Missile, and at that point in time, the rule coming down from Chrysler Corporate was you guys will run a torque flight. That's the transmission that we want to market. that's what you're going to run.
Right.
And they had all sorts of problems basically trying to keep that transmission together with the amount of power that they were making, with the weight of the car and everything else. So eventually they ended up going away from it, and it's a long, drawn-out story. But anyways, they went away from it, went to a manual transmission just like everybody else.
I'm familiar with the 727 and the 904.
Yeah.
Which...
So I believe at this point in time it was a 727.
It was, okay.
Yeah. And so it was in the mid-'80s when guys started to experiment, especially with the advent of super gas. So again, we were running modified eliminator. Then we came up with the idea of the super gas class, and it became apparent that reaction time was very, very important, and how we were going to get a better reaction time.
Is super gas closer to stock or more evolved than the eliminator? It does. If it's not a side, but I don't want to interrupt your story, but just for
evolve, just in a different way.
I mean, like, you know how you referenced the pure stocks at the dirt tracks. Yeah. It's like pure stocks evolve into pro stocks, and then people are like, "This is crazy money. We need to get back to pure," and then they come back down.
Right.
I wonder if it was one of those things. But anyway, back to the.
Yeah. So it's hard to say which class is. I mean, it's just different. But so guys started working with the Power Glide transmissions, and initially, I mean, there was all sorts of bugs to work out, and guys were breaking torque converters and transmissions all the time. And initially, what you had trainee builders that were separate from guys that were building torque converters, and guys would break torque converters, and they would blame the trainees, and the trainee guys would break them. It was really, really ugly. And I remember standing back at the time, we were still running a manual transmission, thinking to myself, I'm like, oh, thank God that we are not doing this. Well, 5 years later, they had it all worked out, and we were taking the 5-speed out of the car and putting a torque converter with a Power Glide in the car.
Wow.
So yeah, from me, I mean, that's probably the biggest one that I've seen.
So I mean, you're talking Motown Missile. We're talking the Blue Hawaiian and the Dragon Lady, and I mean, those were cars that were iconic. I mean, you talked about how people don't come out to see cars at that point. Those like the Sox and Martin cars and those guys. Those cars had personality. You remember who was in them. You knew that car was going to perform. But,
that's right.
But that's gone away too.
Yeah.
The cars had personality back then. That's for sure.
Yeah. And I know there's
none of them do.
No, and especially again the fast cars. I mean, they're just so modified that you can't tell what one car is from another, and
sure you can. They got different decals on
that's true.
So it looks like it's got a grill on it.
Different spots.
Yeah, I know there's been a big discussion too about naming of vehicles. It's like, they should go back to the days of the 70s and 60s when every car had a name, and I don't know. I don't know where I would stand on that, because I think you can't just, in my opinion, you can't just throw a name on a car and have a dull personality being the guy associated with that name, right?
I think the name of the car is obviously going to go with, naming the car would go with your personality. When I bought my first, it wasn't my first race car, but a 70 Nova I bought in like 2001. You probably remember it was like a reddish.
Yeah.
And I bought it from Mike Johnson, and it said Twisted on the door.
Right.
That, it's Twisted. And that's how I bought the car. And I put my motor in, and I brought it home. And everybody said, "Oh, that's just perfect for you." So I was just like, "Okay, I'll leave it alone."
Right.
But
even the Pro Stock Wars with when they were matching Warren Johnson against Bob Glidden, and it was the blue AC Delco car against the contrast with the red Motorcraft car,
right.
and they were matched up, and they were boxy, and they still looked like street cars. Even the funny cars,
right. Yep.
the Oldsmobile that John Force drove when he first got Castrol, it had the boxy look on the front.
Right.
It still looked like it, but you can't have a car say Budweiser King on the side of it and not have a personality like Kenny Bernstein drive it.
That's right.
It's just not going to work today because everybody's going to be prim and proper. Kenny Bernstein is going to tell you a lot of choice things.
Well, and that's why. That's what, in my opinion, big reason why that whole team went away. Because when Kenny Bernstein decided to walk away and say, "All right, I'm not going to drive anymore," and his kid Brandon took over, Brandon wasn't the same personality. I'm not the same personality as my dad. I mean, my dad was a lot more outspoken and, let's call it the rough and tumble man's man, if you will. And that's not my personality. I'm sure I have parts of his personality. I mean, and that's Brandon. Brandon was much more polished and more of a corporate personality. And all right, if he was going to be out winning races every weekend, well, that's one thing. Well, now you're struggling and fans aren't following you because you're not all that interesting. Yeah, why are we affiliated with you?
What do you do full time?
So I'm a sales manager, I guess is what my official title is. So I work for an automation company based out of Minneapolis. So we sell primarily. We manufacture photoelectric sensors. So the timing photocells that we use at the track are manufactured by Banner Engineering. Almost every drag strip timing system in the world is using photoelectric sensors made by Banner.
I did not know that.
Yeah.
You ever get tired of Bruce Banner jokes?
This is the first one I've heard.
That's pretty good.
I mean, what haven't we got to? We've talked about a ton of stuff. I mean, it's been enlightening. I've learned a ton, and I am even more so now just from our first conversation. I'm dying to see one of these things, and no, it's not going to be this weekend, John.
I know.
But we. But what have we not hit on? I know you had some notes, and I told you it was going to be kind of free form. We were going to kind of go where it goes. But is there anything that you wanted to make sure that we got in before? I don't know if you've been watching the clock. We've been doing this an hour and a half already.
Hey, good show.
I've glanced up and just looked and said, well, I'm not sure when he's going to pull the plug. But I mean,
I enjoyed the conversation. I know you guys got a long drive, but I've just enjoyed the conversation.
Not an issue with me at all. And So from my standpoint, I mean, I had some notes just because I didn't really know what to expect. I told John when I was coming out here, this is, I've never been on the radio, TV, anything like that. So this is my first time, let's call it, being part of a show like this. So I didn't necessarily know what to expect. But I just had some general notes, about the series. And I mean, I think overall, I mean, certainly with regards to series, I mean, if you're interested in, kind of cool looking race cars and close racing, then I would certainly invite listeners, watchers to come on out to Empire this weekend.
Empire Dragway Saturday, Sunday.
Yep, and watch some pretty cool racing.
Facebook page for the Western New York Super Rod Association is facebook.com/WNYSRA. You can find all the information there. You got a whole bunch of information, other links of interest. You can contact some of the drivers and find out more about those guys. You can reach Jason at the shop number 716-800-2990. That's cool, 2990.
That was on purpose.
It's all marketing, man. Make it recognizable. 2990.
800-2990.
802, as in your destination, John, and then 990. Which
Hey, I'm good like that.
Yeah, Jay,
that's why I'm in sales.
Website directly, www.wnysra.com. Guys, it was a ton of fun having you on. Is there any sponsors or anybody that you wanted to make mention of before we part? We talked about
Tread City Tire. I mean, like I said, they're a title sponsor. So I mean, like I said, they've been a big part. Certainly, I don't know if they have any stores out east here, but clearly, if there's anybody watching, listening,
if anybody here goes west, they can find
goes out west in the Buffalo area. They have 3-4 stores. If you need for any of the racers out there, I mean, they are a Hoosier race tire dealer. So
cool.
So I mean, if you need to get some race tires, you can certainly do that through Tread City as well.
At Tread City, you can get Hoosier tires regardless of your racing interest.
That's correct. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. They're a full-blown dealer.
So the folks that are planning on running down at Outlaw this weekend with a 360 Sprint, so if they got to run a plated Hoosier or a spec tire, they can get a hold of it through Tread City.
Yeah, that's right. Yep. So they've been good. Like I said, we mentioned Janssen. So Life Storage used to be Uncle Bob's Self Storage. So Life Storage, they've been a big sponsor. Andy Gregory there. BRK Machine and Performance, Oliver Auto, South Buffalo Auto Parts, Zakia's Automotive, and two people that have really been really helpful and helped us out from a marketing standpoint. So Hum Creative Studios, they're the ones that set up our Facebook page, web page. Erin McGowan, her staff, she did a great job. And Dan Delaney, Dan the sign man, I lean on him a lot. He does all our signage, all of our graphics.
Very talented.
Very talented guy. Race car lettering, and I couldn't do this honestly without him, and I know he just doesn't think it's a big deal. But I call him up 2 days before a race and say, "Hey, I forgot, but I need 2 plaques for this weekend because we're having 2 races." And bam, I have 2 plaques ready for me. So those, like I said, all those sponsors, all those companies have just been really critical to our success. And glad I got an opportunity to kind of thank them all.
Yeah, man, it's good to have somebody in your hand like that. We get phone calls every now and again in those same situations, and it's important to take care of your people, and it's important your people take care of you. Works nice two-way street. That is pretty much it. I can't believe we went through an hour and a half, but a ton of fun with the conversation and all the topics. Appreciate you guys coming out and hanging out. Wish you the best of luck this weekend, and wish you guys the utmost safety too. I mean, drag racing certainly has its risks with it, and hopefully everybody stays safe and
we'll try.
There's no problems. It's a successful weekend. You draw 16 cars, have a perfect bracket, and hopefully one of you come home with some money.
Me and John in the final.
That'll be fine, right? That'd be all right. So for Jason and John, I'm Chris Marquardt. That's going to do it for this edition, episode number 211 of the 31st Lap. We're going to be back here, not next week. We got open house for the second graders, so we're going to be off next weekend, and we'll be back the weekend after that and have more conversation. I think we got a sportsman driver they're going to be talking to. Guy's been having a little bit of success down at Woodhull. We're going to set that up for next time. That's going to do it for this one. We'll see everybody next week. That's it for the 31st Lap on FingerLakes1.tv.